My name's Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with IVOrganics, where we grow cool plants. And today we're going to be talking about propagating your fig trees. And there's two ways of propagating your fig trees. And I know there's a lot of literature on cuttings, and I can put a link down to cutting your fig tree. But it was exactly 30 days ago that we used this as an example when we air layered and removed this Eureka lemon tree, which was removed off of the semi-dwarf Eureka lemon tree that's behind me. And by air layering it, and now it's sitting on its own root, it's a non-grafted tree, we've now created what's going to ultimately grow into a standard sized lemon tree measuring anywhere from 20 up to 30 plus feet. As again, this is going to be a standard root, and whatever its genetics are, it's going to reach its potential. Whereas if it was grafted on a dwarf or a semi-dwarf or even a standard rootstock, its height is going to be controlled by the rootstock it's grafted onto. What we're going to show here and what we're going to open up is this fig tree over here, and you can see that my air layer is covered in the aluminum foil, and the reason we've covered it with the aluminum foil is to create a dark place, which is what the roots are used to being in order to develop. And so we're going to open that up here, and as you can see, and again, in just 30 days, you can see all of this root growth that's happened within. Take a look at that. The first thing we're going to do now is remove our air layered plant off of the lower part of the plant stalk. So what we're going to be looking at is the nodes, and we're going to follow each node up to the closest point we can get to that air layer, so that that next node will be where the branch is going to come off. And if you take a look over here, you can see that there was a leaf scar right over here on this side. So this here is the leaf scar, and right above it, it once supported a fig. And then there's a little green dot, hopefully you can capture that in the image, right at the tip of the scissors here, and that green dot is what's going to ultimately form the next branch. And what I'm going to do here is just prune it a 1/4 inch above at an angle, so that if it collects any water at the top, it'll wash right off. So we've just pruned that off. And now we've got our new plant. This here is the Cadota fig variety, a very popular green fig variety. And by air layering it, whether it's a cutting or as we've done here an air layer, we're going to now have a genetically identical, same quality, same yielding capacity. All the characteristics of the Cadota variety that's in this tree will now pass off to this one, and again, genetically identical. Had we planted a seed from one of the figs, and if you take a look and zoom in over here, you can see that it's supporting a couple of figs. We're going to want to remove these, as these are consuming energy, but the seeds that would come out of the fig are each genetically different figs. So if you were to plant the seed of a Cadota fig, it's no longer a Cadota fig, as the seeds could have been cross-pollinated with other figs within the community, and now creating variations of different fig varieties, which could be superior, and more often than not, it's typically inferior, being smaller fruit. It could affect the flavor, it could affect the how well it yields year after year. But what we're going to do here is we're going to remove these figs. So I've got my scissors over here, as this is going to be taking energy away from the plant as we're trying to root it in its next container before we ultimately plant it in the ground. So we're just going to cut those figs off. And there we go. The next thing we're going to do is remove the lower part of the stem. So we're going to open this up. And we're going to remove all the string that we used to support this plastic container. Just going to unwind that here. And now we can just remove this plastic bottle that we used to create the structure to support the moss that was used as soil to support these roots. And here it is. So you can see all those roots. You can take a look here. You can see all the callus that was formed underneath it and around. And what we're going to do now is just take our pruners and we're going to prune it to the closest place we can get to where the roots are. So the roots came off of the top part up here, right up at this point, and all I'm going to do is actually remove all of this off. And you can see that's all gone, and now we've got our roots. What I'm going to do now for you is I'm going to take you back in time to 30 days ago so you can see this process on how we actually created this new plant, and then we're going to talk about how to pot it. So enjoy this next clip which demonstrate how to create your air layer. Enjoy. So this here is a fig tree. I believe it's of the Cadota variety. And what I've got labeled here is a piece of paper that says auxin, which is the plant hormones that are generated typically by the leaves and the tips of the plant. So the auxins are created by the shoots, and then at the bottom here I wrote cytokinins, which are the root hormones. This actually flows from the roots and then travels up the plant. The auxins, again, start from the top of the plant and work their way down. There's both auxins and cytokinins throughout the entire plant, but the concentrations are different depending on where you are. More auxins near the top, more cytokinins naturally near the bottom, and depending on how that balance and depending on how you prune it will actually affect the fluctuation of hormones and ultimately the plant growth. I'm sharing this with you because this is kind of the science behind what's happening, and that's actually going to create the root formation that we're trying to accomplish. So I'm going to take this off here as it's in the way. What I want to share with you also, if you come in a little closer, you can take a look here that at every node, so this was the node, and at every node there was a fig, and here another leaf, and the node, and there was another fig right here, and here's another node. And what I like about this fig tree is I can also share with you that there's these breathing holes around each of the nodes. If you can take a look at those little dots that basically go around those nodes. Those dots are actually called lenticles, and they're actually breathing holes that allow the bark to actually breathe. It actually brings air from the outside into the cambium tissues and exchanges gases from the cambium tissues back out. So these lenticles will actually be places that are more likely than not to also result in root formation. So keep that in mind as we actually go through preparing our air layering to this Cadota fig variety. So the first step in preparing this is we're going to have to remove some of the bark. We're actually trying to interfere with the flow of the hormones through the plant. And to accomplish this, we're going to remove the bark below one of the nodes. So we have identified this node, and this will be actually a little bit too close to this leaf. So I'm actually going to go down a little bit further. We'll identify this node over here. And all of these white dots that actually are growing around the plant, you can actually see right here at the nodes. One white dot, another white dot, another white dot will ultimately form into the roots. And what I'm going to do here with my razor is I'm going to cut right underneath it about a 1/4 inch. And I'm basically going to cut all the way through and around. And you can see here comes the sap. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually cutting around the bark down to the cambium layers. I'm not cutting through the wood. And the sap is carrying waters and sugars, and it's also transporting those hormones, the cytokinins from the bottom and the auxins from the top. And by interfering with this fluctuation, we're going to cause it to root. I'll explain how in just a minute. So we've just cut here. We're going to do our second cut. It could be right above the next node. And we'll just wrap it around like so. And then we just gotta create an opening for us to get into. And then we're gonna open the bark like so. And it peels just like it's clothing coming off. It actually is quite loose. Here it is. You can see all that green is the cambium and the living tissues of the plant. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to scar and make sure that all of those vessels that are transporting the waters and the sugars and those hormones up and down the plant are damaged. And that'll be it. What's going to happen at the top now are the auxins are going to come flowing down, and there's no cytokinins to dilute it on this top part of the plant. And what the auxins do is increase root development. So it's going to encourage these nodes to now develop into roots. What we're going to now do is put some rooting hormone around this zone. So we're taking our rooting hormone, our rooting powder, and we're just going to brush some of that on it and put it around the node. I wouldn't recommend doing this with your finger. You should have gloves on or maybe use a brush instead. But I'm just going to do that. I'm going to wash my hands right after this step. And as you can see here, we just put this rooting hormone on it. So the next step is we got to create now some soil, or give it some soil medium to basically offer the plant for it to develop its roots. And what we're going to use to accomplish this is the sphagnum moss. And we're just going to put that in some water to absorb. And it allows us to actually form it around the plant a lot easier. And while this is happening, I'm going to prepare the container that's going to support the soil. And what we're going to do is just basically take our water bottle. I just took off the lid here, and I'm going to share with you over here what we're going to do next. We're just going to take the bottle over here, and I'm going with my pruners. We're just going to cut it like so, all the way up. And that's the reason I got my two pruners. I use my heavier pruners to cut the thicker lid, and now I'm using just my regular scissors, my paper scissors, to cut up near the top. And right at this button over here, I'm just going to open that up into a little circle as well. And that'll hold right around the tree. So you can see what I've now created. Here's my water bottle. We've split the end that you drink from apart. We've tore all the way up the side, and then we've created a little opening for the branch to actually come through. What we're going to do now here is just wrap this around the plant like so. And then we'll take some of our twine to secure it in place. Again, this tie is only going to be here temporarily. I never, ever, ever encourage knots to be formed against the tree, but this is only going to rest here. It typically takes anywhere from as little as 2 weeks to as much as 8 weeks, maybe up to 10, for this process to work. And again, I just want to reiterate, this process can be used on pretty much everything. I've got a ficus tree here to my right. That's my neighbor's. It can work on your ficus tree. It could work on an elm tree. It could work on your, pretty much you name it. Oak trees. Just on and on and on. If you see magnolia trees, if there's anything that you see that you like, you can actually create the genetic identical clone of it through this method. What we're going to do next is now take our moss. It's now absorbed the water. We're going to take some of this, and we're going to squeeze it. Some people say to squeeze it really hard to make sure you get all the water, but you can see that I've created, it's got so many openings, it's naturally going to dry out. And so now we're going to put the moss inside the container. You can squeeze it just a medium amount. You can allow some water to stay within it. And we're just going to fill the container like so. And you're just going to want to make sure you get the moss all around it. You don't want to pack it too tight and nor too loose. You're going to be the judge of this part. But you just want to make sure that it's in contact with that particular node. That's going to be the key. We're going to cover the wound that we created, and about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch above the node. The nodes are going to form the roots and basically fill in this media of soil. And you can see using this sphagnum moss, it's quite easy to work with. It could work with any other type of soil. So in regards to improvising, if you had to use something else, it could work. But the moss actually is just really easy to work with. That's it. I'm going to spin this around so you can actually see what I've done. You can see the tear over here. The moss is kind of bulging out of the plant. What we're going to now do is just take our string, and we're just going to secure it in place. so it doesn't move. If it moves while the plant is trying to root, it's going to damage the roots. So we got to make sure that it stays where we want it to be. Tighten that up. And then what we're going to do next is take a little bit of tin foil. And what I'm using the foil first is to basically help the bottom of the container contain the liquid. So we're just wrapping it near the base. And we're just pressing that down. Again, we haven't created an airtight seal, and you'll see why in a minute. And then we're going to take some more foil, and what we're going to do with the rest of this is basically trick the plant into thinking that this area is underground. You want to make it dark. You don't have to use foil, you can use paper, you can use any other thing, but the logic behind it is you're trying to create a dark environment, which is what the roots are used to growing into. And that's the reason we created this shield. And now the last step is I'm taking my little watering can here, and I'm going to add this product over here, which is Super Thrive. And what it is it's basically like a vitamin B1 solution. It helps with any transplant shock. It's also got a little bit of nitrogen in it, and that'll actually encourage some growth. And we're just going to put a couple of drops of that in here. And water the top. So we got all of those vitamins, all of this good water going right into the plant, and you can see that the water is passing right through and dripping down the plant. There is no water being trapped in this area, and nor should there ever. If it's actually an airtight seal, and I've seen people using saran wrap, and I've seen people using other more airtight methods, and the risk of that is you're causing mold and mildew and disease and rot to actually occur around the plant. By actually allowing the airs to pass through, it actually will encourage a more healthier root development within this area. So you can see that the water is still just dripping down and coming out of the plant. So we're gonna add water to this plant, and most people do it so airtight that they never add water and they just come and revisit it, you know, a few weeks or a month later and the roots are there. But the healthier way to do it is to actually allow it to breathe and just water it. Hopefully if you got the time to visit your plants twice a week, add some water and open the results about 4 to 6 weeks from now, and you'll be surprised. Let me show you. So a question a lot of you have asked is this the right time? We're in November now, the middle of November. Is this the right time to be doing your air layering? And I would advise the answer is no. As the plants are now across the country going into hibernation, dormancy, their metabolism slowing down, it's not the time to be doing your air layering, as if the plant's metabolism's growing, doing well and it's active and it's growing, then the roots are going to be doing the same thing. But if the plant's not doing much above the ground, it's not likely that it's also going to produce roots for you through cuttings or even air layering as well. But I will test this out as well on a couple of my evergreens. I've got a couple other lemon varieties I want to experiment with the air layering over the winter. But I don't expect it to establish as fast as it otherwise would come spring, summer, or even early fall if your temperatures are still warm enough, as it is here in Los Angeles, California. The first thing I'm going to do now to prepare the pot is I've got these green marbles. If you take a look over here, this is something I do to all of my potted plants that are on our patio. And what I'll do is take a glue such as this, which is an indoor-outdoor glue that's waterproof, and I'm simply going to add some glue to the back of this marble, and we're just going to stick that on in 3 different positions around the saucer. And here we are. And what this will help us do, I'm going to wait for it to dry before I turn it around. What this will do, if you take a look at this lemon variety here, if you take a look at the bottom, what it does is the bottom patio, if this were resting on wood or other parts, it'll actually remain clean, as the soil, any soil or any fertilizers that come out of it will rest in the saucer, and any additional moisture will just simply wash away. On the contrary, this one over here that has no saucer, if you take a look, you can see that it's creating mud. Every time you water it, I just added a little bit of water before this video, so you can see that the mud's going to come out and end up on your deck and wherever else. Whereas again, this technique is gonna help keep your property a lot cleaner. So we'll just turn that around, and we're gonna position our pot on top once we finish it. What we're going to do next is make sure your pot has a good drain hole on the bottom. And the first step is to make sure that you've got either rocks such as these, or some broken clay pieces are also a good alternative. And the goal is to make sure that this hole is covered, but allowing the water to run through quickly. The next step, and I've done different soil mixes, but for the sake of time, I just have an organic potting mix that I'm going to be using. Do not use native soil for this purpose. What a potting soil will do for your plants is it'll make sure that there's more moisture in the pot, so that in between waterings the soil will still remain moist, whereas native soil will dry out a lot faster. Or if you're using compost, again, it's going to dry out a lot faster than what potting soil will do. Is it's got vermiculite, perlite, and moss, and other things that just retain water a lot longer. So what we're going to do is just put a couple of handfuls here at the bottom. And another important technique is to take some perlite as well. As you can see over here, it improves drainage and aeration in potting mixes, and you can see it just looks like snow here. We're just going to add another couple of handfuls, and I always like to add some perlite to the lower bottom couple of inches as well as the top couple of inches, and what that'll do is, again, improve drainage. A lot of people, when they take care of their plants, they just want to make sure it's always continuously moist, and that's like the worst thing you can do for your plants. It's more importantly to make sure you water it and that you allow it to dry between waterings, and that'll create a far healthier plant, a lot less disease, minimize risk of root rot, stem rot, and a whole bunch of other problems. So we want to make sure that the soil does dry between waterings, and adding additional perlite to the bottom as well as the top couple of inches will help improve the health of your plant. The next thing we're going to do is add some more potting soil. So we'll put a couple more handfuls here. And then we're going to add our plant. And here we are with our plant. We'll put that in and just cover it. When it comes to figs, more so than almost any other fruit variety, it's recommended to plant it about an additional inch or two below the root level. Just as tomatoes, among the other vegetables, tomatoes are advised to also plant deeper. And that helps increase the stability and the health of the plant. And here I am going with some more perlite. And we're just going to mix that in. And here we go. The next step we're going to do here is we're going to water it. And we have two choices of things we can add to the water. One being, I've got this fish fertilizer. And it says over here 511, 5% nitrogen, 1% phosphorus, 1% potassium. The nitrogen is obviously going to contribute a lot towards the growth and the health of the plant, but there's no reason why we need a weak phosphorus and a weak potassium. Even though phosphorus contributes towards fruiting, it is also an important element in a lot of the plant's metabolism. Phosphorus, for one, ATP, adenosine triphosphate, is one molecule that's used by the plant in making the process of making sugars. So phosphate is used in other purposes aside from just making fruit, and potassium is important element towards the root health and stability and structure of the plant. So instead of using something that's so strong on the nitrogen, we're going to use something more like this. This here is a fish and kelp fertilizer mix, and the percentage on this one, if you zoom in here, is a 2-2-2. So it's a balanced nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. And what we'll do is we'll just shake that here. And add a couple of tablespoons to our watering can. And we can put our saucer underneath so we don't lose any of the minerals from this watering, and we can water it now. And if you want to take a look here, you can see how we're watering and how fast the water just runs down. We'll water it again. And watch how fast the water runs down and out of the container. We'll also stake the plant as well, just to make sure that it remains firm as the roots get established in the plant. The last thing I want to share with you is this product. And this is one more thing that we're going to do to the plant here. And this is IVOrganic. It's a 3-in-1 tree guard. Just add water, a natural tree trunk and branch barrier, protection against damaging sunburn and insects and rodents, for use on your roses, fruit and nut trees, ornamental trees and shrubs. And it's a non-toxic, environmentally safe and organic product. And over here it says it's ideal for new plantings and transplants, and that's exactly what we're doing here today. Save injured and damaged trees, and I'm going to show you an issue with one of our fig trees here in the corner of the property. And then prune and exposed surfaces, which again is something I'm going to demonstrate shortly. But what I also wanted to share with you is our future cans will have this logo on it as well. As the IVOrganics is now registered material for use in organic agriculture with the Washington State Department of Agriculture. So we're very proud about this as well. What we're going to do here is I want to show you how we're going to prepare this product. One other thing I want to show on the back of this label, between the old and the new label, it shows over here application directions on how to make this into a tree paint. It also shows down here approximately, it shows may also be used to make a total plant sunblock, including foliage by diluting 1 to 2 teaspoons per gallon of water. So this here teaches you, one, how to turn it into a paint as well as a foliar spray. But with the new can, it shows you 3 different things you can do with the product. 1, as a brush on directions. 2, foliar spray directions. And 3, tree paste directions. I want to share this with you real quick as we finish taking care of this plant. What we're going to do is, I'm just going to take my can here. We'll do this here on the floor so you can watch this. And this is what it comes with. It's your can, your organic paint powder, and then these oils, which are natural oils. They're also all organic, and the goal is the oils will help repel a lot of insects, as well as if you paint on your tree trunks, if there's a rodent issue, it'll also repel the rodents as well, as it's got castor oil. What we're going to do is just take the paint powder here and put it in the can. And to use it as a tree paste, we're just going to take 2 ounces of water, or a 1/4 cup of water, and add it. And what we'll do now is stir it. And we can add the oils to it as well. And mix. So after a couple of minutes of mixing, you can see that we've got something that's now the texture of like toothpaste. And let me show you how this can be used on a fig tree in your garden or other trees as well. Come and follow me. Let's go. So here we are alongside one of our fig trees in the garden. This is one of the figs that I've been discussing in a couple of videos and will be used for grafting with up to 5 different varieties of figs in the late winter and early spring. So stay tuned and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's going to happen to this fig tree. But come in a little closer. So we got all of these 5 branches out of the fig tree by pruning these very large branches, as you can see. And this is growth that happened about a year ago and definitely less than 2 years ago. But if you zoom in a little closer, you'll notice that the fig has a very soft pith, or the very center of the tree is very soft. And even though we painted it with IVOrganics to help protect and shield any beetles and termites and other pathogens such as bacteria and viruses from getting into the wood of the tree, we've been painting it, but the pith is so soft it keeps coming through. So what we'll do is we'll just take a little bit of the tree paste, and we can now fill in holes. So if you have any trees that have any issues with beetles or termites or anything else that's got holes in the tree, you can now use it as a paste and seal that as well. And here, if you take a look at the side, on the other side, if you come around the back, you'll notice that the bark is also peeling, and this is some damage as it's been expanding, and we can actually fill that in a lot easier as a tree paste than you otherwise would be able to brush it on as a paint. So that's now done, and that'll seal and will last a lot longer than if we just used it as a tree paint. Let's go and see the next steps. Come and follow me. So function number 1 was tree paste. Function number 2, we can just now add water and fill it up to the top and continue stirring to now form a tree paste. Watch this. So after a couple of minutes of mixing, we've now got a tree paint that we can use to brush onto our trees. And let me show you an example of what we can do here. So this here is one of our newly installed Eureka lemon trees. And as you can see, it hasn't created a canopy. It's very important with citrus as well as most fruit trees to grow them in a canopy, like an umbrella, so that the top branches are shielding and sheltering the exposed bark to excessive amounts of sun. So what we can do now, and as you can see, it's already been painted about a few months ago, but it's advised to, you know, after about 4 months, you can actually put on another coat to make sure that all the oils and the paint and the block is there as a sunscreen. You can see that we can just quickly coat that on. And now it's got the protection as a sunblock as well. It's got the oils to help shield it from any risk of, again, the wood-boring insects or any other pathogens that might try to enter any of these pruned surfaces. As I've just covered a couple, but there's a branch that was pruned over here on this side, and now it's coated with the paint, so at least it'll be safe as the wound continues to heal. And let's go ahead and take a look at the last function that we're going to use here for our newly installed fig. Follow me. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to take our spray bottle, and this bottle has got some water in here, and all you have to do is just take some water. So simply take your bottle, and you're just going to add 1 to 2 teaspoons of this to your spray bottle. Put the top back on, shake it, and spray it. And take a look. So by spraying the plant, you've created a shield to help repel excessive sun so the plant remains cool, as well as it's got the oils to help naturally repel the insects and potentially rodents from trying to affect and consume the plant. Again, if there's an issue with rodents, it's advisable to use it as a paintbrush and paint the stem, the lower couple of feet of the plant, to help protect it from any gnawing rodents as well, which include the moles, the voles, gophers, as well as rabbits. So if you've liked this, be sure to like it, and most importantly, subscribe down below so you'll be connected to all the other educational gardening videos produced by IVOrganic. Thanks again for watching, and happy gardening.